What if the greatest writer in English history once stood face to face with the most powerful queen the world had ever known? A genius from Stratford and the Virgin Queen herself. Two legends, one kingdom, but did their paths ever cross? History gives us clues, myths, rumors, and one extraordinary mystery. This is the secret story of Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth I. For centuries, people have wondered, did William Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth I actually meet? They lived in the same city, breathed the same air, loved the same entertainment. And yet, their relationship remains a puzzle historians still try to solve. From charming anecdotes to forged letters, from court performances to whispered theories of a royal romance, the fascination never ends. Tonight, we dive deep into the truth. Queen Elizabeth I was not just a ruler. She was a patron of the arts unlike any monarch before her. She protected theaters when Puritans tried to shut them down. She created her own troupe, the Queen's Men, and she adored comedy, especially the legendary performer Richard Tarleton, a man who could make her laugh until she cried. Elizabeth wasn't just watching theater, she was shaping it, and this passion laid the path that would eventually lead her toward a young playwright from Stratford. Peter Ackroyd tells a charming tale. In 1575, Queen Elizabeth visited Kenilworth Castle, just 12 miles from Shakespeare's hometown. The Queen was greeted with grand pageants, floating masks on an artificial lake, and theatrical performances unlike anything England had seen. Shakespeare's father, a respected local official, was almost certainly present, and many believe 11-year-old William was there too, watching in awe as the Queen's procession passed by. Some scholars even point to lines in A Midsummer Night's Dream and Twelfth Night that echo the spectacle of that visit. If true, this may have been the very first moment Shakespeare laid eyes on England's monarch, long before he ever picked up a quill. After Tarleton died in 1588, the Queen's Men began to fade. London wanted new stars, new stories, new brilliance. Enter Shakespeare. By the early 1590s, his troupe, the Lord Chamberlain's Men, became the sensation of the royal court. December 1594, they performed for Elizabeth herself. 1595, the Queen paid them handsomely for two comedies. 1598, the printed edition of Love's Labour's Lost proudly advertised that it had been performed before Her Highness. The message was clear. Shakespeare's plays weren't just popular. They were royal entertainment. But performing for Elizabeth wasn't casual or intimate. It was a ritual full of rules, structure, and royal scrutiny. Before they stepped foot in the palace, actors had to rehearse for the master of the revels, Edmund Tilney. He censored lines, inspected costumes, demanded elegance. Only once everything was approved did the actors row downriver to the royal palace. They performed across a grand hall, with the Queen seated on a raised dais at the opposite end. Musicians above, nobles around her, actors stepping onto the stage in borrowed, glittering costumes. Did Shakespeare himself stand there among them? Almost certainly. Did Elizabeth watch his words come alive right before her eyes? Without a doubt. But did they speak? That is where history becomes mysterious. Professor Stanley Wells gives us the best clue. It seems very likely, he says, that when the actors played at court, they would have been introduced to their host. There's no surviving record, but considering how often the troupe performed for her, it is highly probable that Shakespeare and Elizabeth exchanged greetings, perhaps more than once. Still, a friendship? A secret relationship? No evidence. In fact, they had every reason to avoid closeness. Shakespeare carried Catholic sympathies, a dangerous contrast to the Protestant Queen, and he often portrayed royalty in unflattering ways. When she saw Richard II, Elizabeth reportedly remarked, "I am Richard II, know ye not that?" And yet, she kept inviting his troupe back. If she was offended, she hid it well. Near the end of her life, Elizabeth is said to have requested A Midsummer Night's Dream, one of Shakespeare's most enchanting plays. But when she died in 1603, Shakespeare offered no public tribute. Some criticized him for it. Only days later, King James I elevated the troupe to the King's Men, a level of royal favor they had never enjoyed under Elizabeth. And just like that, Shakespeare's ties to the Tudor monarchy faded into history. So, did Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth I ever meet? Probably yes. Their worlds overlapped constantly. Their passions aligned. Their art connected them. But the romantic image of the Queen and the Bard as close companions? That belongs to fantasy, not fact. In the end, the story of Shakespeare and Elizabeth I is like one of his own plays, full of mystery, speculation, and imagination. Two icons, two legends, linked forever not by friendship, but by the shared creation of England's golden age.